I was reading a story this week about World War I, and I found something very interesting in the fact that over 50,000 soldiers in World War I actually died along the Austrian-Italian border, and it wasn't from gunshots, and it wasn't from any type of war activity that had taken place, no shrapnel, no explosions, none of those other kind of things. They actually died, over 50,000 of them, because of avalanches. And so it's enough that you're fighting against the enemy on both sides, and then sometimes we fight against things that we don't even understand, and we don't even know how they even take place. We don't understand it, but something takes place where this avalanche comes upon these people that are walking along trying to protect people and trying to protect their country, and yet through no fault of their own, boom, they're hit with this. Now, they took a look at why avalanches start, and many times they start because of a loud noise. So if a country felt, especially as they're walking along the borders, that they could possibly start an avalanche, they could shoot a loud cannon toward that to hope that an avalanche would start. But it could be a loud noise that would take place, sometimes even down to a yell. So if people started yelling as they were going back and forth toward one another, you could start all this land, literally land and snow and everything, to start coming down the mountain. And through no fault of their own, 50,000 plus people lost their lives. So I started thinking about that, and the more I started thinking about it, I realized that how many times has that happened to us in our lives? To where something comes up, and we hear something, and all of a sudden, boom, we are just underneath it. Someone walks in and says, I want a divorce. Someone walks in and says, I'm leaving. Someone walks in and says, you know what, I've been unfaithful. We hear words such as, well, it's chapter 11 is the only thing that we have left. We get a phone call that there is an injury. We get a phone call that we're not expecting. And all of a sudden, these things take place, and in just one instance, it literally turns our life upside down. And we feel as though we're under it so much that there's no chance of getting out. And we get hit with this, and the rocks, and the snow, and the debris, and everything that flies down. And for some of us, it gets to the point where we have no chance of even recovering. It takes all of our time. It takes all of our resources. It takes every single thing that we have just to even get out of bed the next day, or to pick up the phone, or to send a text message, or to reach out to somebody, because we're just under it. Now, we as a church here recently, we've felt that. We've been there. It just feels like everything is just kind of let loose, and now it's an opportunity for us to kind of take a step back and to hopefully clear all that debris away and to step forward. I know that the NFL season has started, and everyone loves talking about different things from the NFL. One of my favorite all-time coaches is a gentleman by the name of Bum Phillips. He would just show up in his cowboy boots and sometimes in a flannel shirt and suspenders. You never knew what he was going to wear. But he literally said there's two kinds of coaches in the NFL. The ones that have been fired and the ones that are going to be fired. And for each of us, that's how it is at times. And so just because we're a believer, we don't get a free pass in this life. Just because we know the Lord doesn't mean that everything's going to be rosy and perfect. It doesn't mean we're not going to fall into the things of this world. It doesn't mean that the things of this world are not going to affect us in some way, shape, or form. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when. And so when we are hit by this avalanche, how is it that we react? We're going to show you today, if you'll turn to Psalm 88. Now, this is where we're going to start. We're going to go through a couple of different Psalms. I shared with you a couple weeks ago about reading the proverb of the day. So whatever the day of the month is, you can read that proverb. So if you haven't done it for the last week or the last 2 weeks, the great thing about it is whatever the date is, you can just pick that day and then you can read that proverb. Now ladies, when you get to Proverb 31, that's a tough one because you know that whole perfection thing, and that's kind of the goal to be and all that kind of stuff. That's why only like half the months have 31 days, because it's just too much on you. All right, so guys, don't expect your ladies to be that perfect gal. It's what they're striving for, but it's a tough one. But each day you can go to those Proverbs, and as you're coming up on these latter days of the month, you'll read about some of the things that God doesn't like. He doesn't care for. And He actually detests and hates. And he'll read about some of these things that we have to deal with and the people around us. But when an avalanche hits, it sure is nice to know that we may have people that are alongside of us, that are with us, that can help us to pull us out of that rubble. And even as a believer, to understand that, listen, you are not the only one in this boat. You aren't the only one that's been hit by this avalanche. In fact, for some of you right now, you haven't been hit for a while. And because you haven't been hit, you're in that place right now as a believer where you can actually help someone else through that. Hey, I've been there. Hey, I've had that loss. Hey, I've had to I filed Chapter 11. I lost my house. I lost everything. I've had the person that left. I've lost relationships. I've struggled over and over again. And it's happened to me. And so you have that opportunity now to take those experiences that you have, which is part of the shape that we talked about at the beginning of the year, to help someone. And for those of you right now that are feeling that avalanche and you're under it, your time schedule is crazy, you have no time to give to God, you have no time to even talk to anybody, but you showed up here today and you're like, man, I'm feeling that right now. You have to know something. If you are so stuck in that rubble and you're not reaching out to anybody else, it's going to be just you in the rubble. You need those people around you. You need to have someone that you can call. You need to have someone you can send a text message or send an email or just reach out and say, man, I am feeling it. I'm that guy. This loud noise came in and boom, everything let loose. And that loud noise was just my wife or my husband or my child just coming in saying a couple words, and it felt like the weight of the world just hit me. And I'm still feeling it. That's what God calls His disciples to do, is to reach out to one another, to love them and care for them. So if you're under it today, it's okay for you to reach out to someone. And if you're seeing it today with someone else, it's okay for you to reach out to them, to share with them, and to show them the love that only God can give. Now, Psalm 88 is different than just about any other psalm. And the reason it's different than just about any other psalm is because it doesn't give a fix at the end. It doesn't say, hey, this is really bad, and now here's what's really good. This is how you fix it. Now, there are other psalms that do that. So if you're, once again, wanting to read that proverb for the day, grab a psalm or two to read. But if you're reading the Psalms, you have to understand something. You're going to hear all kinds of emotions that go through the Psalms. You're going to hear people that are mad. You're going to hear people that, you know what, I'm just tired of this. You're going to hear people that deal with dumb people. You're going to hear people that don't want to deal with people. You're going to hear people that cry out in anger, that are suffering, that struggle. That sound like anybody that you know? Might be us, right? But we don't want to be the victims. We don't want to allow all this to weigh us down and wear us out. We want to be able to take this to the point where we can turn this back to God. So in this psalm, this is a psalm of despair, and there is not a fix for it. It's gloom, it's doom, and it's depression. So the reason I'm sharing that is if you read a proverb and you start reading some psalms, the best way to cure that at the end is to just go read some words from Jesus. So read some proverb, read a proverb of the day, read some psalms, and then go read some words from Jesus, and that way it'll uplift you. So here we go. All the gloom and doom, starting with Psalm 88. And we're going to go through a couple psalms today so you'll have an opportunity to jump into it. It says this, right at the beginning, O Lord, God of my salvation. So this psalm was written by He-Man. That's really his name. He-Man, and he was an Ezrahite. So here's He-Man, and he's writing this down. The first thing he says is he recognizes God. He says, O Lord, God of my salvation. So anytime we take something to God, we have to understand something. God is God, and we're not. So we should recognize Him for at least for who He is. No, I don't understand the life situation you're in. You don't understand the life situation that I'm in. I don't understand why the avalanche came now. I don't know what the loud noise was that came through. I don't know what caused it. I just know that I'm underneath it and under this rubble. But I'm stuck, and right now, the only place that I can turn to is God. And I've talked to people at times where they've shared with me their life story, and they've shared some of the things that took place, and they've shared even where they're at right now, and I'm like, I don't have the answers for you. And they're like, well, I just appreciate you listening. But they go through it, and I ask them, well, then how in the world were you able to get through this? And their answer every time is this. It's because of my faith. Because I know I have a God that loves me. And almost every time, those people also see people that don't have faith. And they share with me, I don't know how it is that they are getting through it. Because if I didn't have God to turn to, I would turn to whatever the world has to offer. I'd be lost in a bottle. I'd be lost in a drug. I'd be lost in my own ways. And then the next morning, I'd still be lost and I'd still be looking. And so He-Man starts off, he says, O Lord, God of my salvation, I have cried out day and night before you. So he's saying, listen, it's not like I'm just, taking 5 minutes aside and it's during my devotional time and it's a little bit of moments over here. I'm calling out to you day and night. And I know that you're God, and it's like I'm calling, so if I'm calling out to you, are you listening? Are you paying attention? I keep hearing how much you love me, but do you really love me enough that you're going to show me something that's going on? Why is it I'm not hearing back from you? He says, I have cried out day and night before you. Let my prayer come before you. Incline your ear to my cry. So it's literally at the point where he's so underneath this pressure. He's so underneath this need to perform. He's so underneath this month's numbers. He's so underneath, oh my goodness, my spouse is coming home, and how is it they're going to react when they walk in the door? He's so underneath all these things that he's been calling out to God. He's just saying, would you just listen? And how many times do we each go through that? God, I prayed this on Monday. I prayed this on Wednesday. I prayed this on Friday, and things haven't changed. I prayed it for a month. I prayed it for 6 months. I prayed it for a year, for years, for decades. When is it that I am going to see this change? You have to remember something. There is a change taking place. But many times that change is not in the circumstances, but the change takes place within you and within your heart. How is it that you are reacting through God to the situation? He continues and he says, for my soul is full of troubles, and my life draws near to the grave. Each day we get closer to the grave, whether we realize it or not. I used to joke around all the time and say, hey, when you started living, you started dying. And then as you get older and older, and you say, hey, when you started living, you started dying, you start thinking, going, oh, actually I'm getting closer to death than I was to when I started my life. You start getting to that point where you're like, okay, well, I had this many Sundays so far, and I probably don't have that many Sundays left. And if I do, I don't know how good the ones are going to be at the end anyway, so how many more Sundays do I really want to have? But we start to think about things a little differently, these cute little sayings that we have that aren't nearly as cute anymore. He says, I am counted with those who go down to the pit. Now when it talks about the pit in the Old Testament, if you ever wondered what happened to the people that died in the Old Testament, they went to a place that was known as Sheol. Sheol was a holding place, which is where Abraham was. Abraham's bosom, which is where the believer sat. But there was a chasm that was between that place and hell, and whoever was in hell was in hell. And everyone else was here in Abraham's bosom, and that's where Jesus went down to release them. So as a believer now, that's where we go. But back then, that was a holding place. Abraham, the father of all nations, held all those that believed. So he's counting himself. So this is saying, He-Man is saying, I'm a believer, and yet I'm under it. I'm a believer, and the avalanche is hit. I'm a believer in the rocks and the snow and the trees, and everything's coming down on me, and I can't move. I'm feeling this. And I feel like every day I'm just taking another step closer to the grave. What in the world am I even here for? This is that psalm of depression, which some deal with. This is that psalm of despair, which some deal with. This is that psalm that wears us out, and yet it's in here for a purpose. And it's showing us that any one of us can be here in this position at any time. He says, I am like a man who has no strength. See, when the avalanche hits, it literally takes the very life out of us. We can be tall, we can be strong, we can be in the gym every day, lifting all the time, and for whatever reason, when these things hit, when it hits our schedule, when it hits our everyday lives, when it interrupts the things that we like to do and how it is that we want to do it, it beats us up to the point where we feel like we have no strength. And it's in those moments that this is the first place that we can start. When we call out to God, when we turn to God, when we recognize God in our lives, we need to hang on to God, and that's the first thing we need to focus upon. Where is it right now that you're feeling that despair? Where is it right now you're feeling so beat up that it seems like there's no answer? Because when there's no answer, when it seems like there's no end, the only place that we can turn to at that point is to God. I want you to turn in your Bibles, if you would please. We're going to turn to another psalm. And the psalm that we're going to turn to is Psalm 32. Now, each psalm has a different purpose, but if we're going to feel like we're stuck, if we're under that point where, okay, I can't move anymore, I don't have the answers, no one around me seems to know, I want to step forward with God, I know that I need to hang on to God, but what is it that I first need to do? Because there's a reason that I ended up in and under this avalanche. And here's something you have to remember. For some of you, it's not your fault. For some of you, this wasn't what life was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a wife and a picket fence and 2.3 kids and a dog. It was supposed to be when they came home from work, everything was going to be happy and dinner was going to be on the table. It was supposed to be, hey, we're going to go straight through this thing. We're only going to get married one time, and that's the only time it's going to be ever. It was supposed to be until death do us part, and then he or she left early, or was taken early. It was supposed to be, I'm supposed to have 3 or 4 kids, and for whatever reason, I have none. It was supposed to be, my dream was going to be to play in some type of professional league. I was going to be a star at some type of level, and all of a sudden it was taken away from me. And each one of us, those are moments that we can point to of despair. And your point of despair could be something completely different. It could be a time where you have to take a look and say, let me evaluate this. But for others, we take a look at these times and we have to go, you know what, I do have my part in this. I had an opportunity to step up, and I didn't really put the work in. I was lazy, I procrastinated, I kind of pushed things aside. You know what, everything always came easy to me. I was born with a silver spoon, and everything came, and all of a sudden, Mom and Dad were gone, and I was on my own, and I didn't know how to work. I didn't have the work ethic that I should have had. And now I'm having struggles, and I don't really understand finances, and I don't understand the steps that I should take, and Mom and Dad aren't there, so now what is it that I do? And in each of these moments, there are times where we all have to say, okay, what is my role in it? So if my first thing is I have to hang on to God, as I'm holding on to Him, now it's a time to say, okay, God, what is it that I did within the situation? Where is it that my role is in this situation? We have two little dogs and 1 big dog. And which is the dumbest thing that we've ever done. We have 4 kids and 3 dogs. And one of them is in college, so we really have 3 kids and 3 dogs. And one of them just had surgery, and he can't even use his arm, so we really have 2.5 kids and 3 dogs. You see how the numbers are going against us? So I am blessed. I will agree with that. We are very, very blessed. But the one dog that I'm talking about, her name is Molly, and I have a nickname for her, and she actually answers to it now. It's Satan. Okay, so the Satan update for the week is that last night she came running in, and my big black dog doesn't want anything to do with her. He's sitting over here, and he just looks at me and he gives me a look like, please just get her away from me and teach me how to make a fist because I want to punch her in the face. That kind of thing. And so I'm teaching him, no, cut the thumb in. Oh, I don't have a thumb. All right, we'll go back and forth. So there's my big black dog, and I'm keeping him away from Satan. And Satan goes running around, and Satan's chasing Toby, who, he's now standing up and does all that kind of stuff. And Satan runs right over to me and just looks right at me and just stops and just pees right there on the floor. So I looked up, and it was not National Punt the Puppy Day anywhere in any country. And so I grabbed her, and I called her by her name, and I said, Molly! And I just took her, and I put her in a cage, and I shut the door, and that was it. And I went upstairs, and I'm like, I just have to walk away from this for a little bit. So I went upstairs, and Deanna, who I thought was asleep, said, did you put Molly in her cage? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, when she gets up in the morning, you get to get up with her. And so I'm like, I don't even care at this point. I will do so. Because right now, I'm trying to finish studying, I'm reading through this, there's a lot of things that are coming to me, and also the dog's just peeing there right in front of the carpet, and I'm just done. So the dog's in the cage, we're good to go, and I'm going through my stuff in my mind, and I've got myself, I'm hanging on to God, and I'm moving back, and I'm, where's my fault in this? And I'm going through the whole thing, okay, because you preach this, or you're going to preach this, so you have to be ready, and I lay there, and all of a sudden, I'm out. And I'm in that deep, deep, deep sleep. And I'm like, oh, this is great. When all of a sudden, Satan comes calling. In the form of a 9-pound white fluff ball barking. To which Deanna, she may not even know it, just did one of these whack. And it's my time. So 4 in the morning, me and Satan are hanging out in the backyard, just having a conversation. And I got to tell you, when I went outside last night, it was so still. It was unbelievable. And I looked up, and there was that little moon that sits there. We call that God's fingernail. And I just stood there, and I could not help but just stop in awe and realize, wow, it's a big, big place that we are part of. And there's a big, big God that's watching over us. And there's an amazing story that I get to be a part of. So no matter what the avalanche is, no matter where I'm feeling and how down I'm feeling and how beat up we're feeling as a church and as a leadership and as a person and in life and with schedules and all those other kind of things, it's amazing how when it's just you and God, you can't help but do anything but you just stop and recognize God for who He is. When's the last time you took the time to do that? How many people would like to do that? Be honest with me, because we're going to have a sign up for Satan to come to your house for the next 90 days till she's potty trained, because I want you to experience this. It was amazing. It was unbelievable. And it was just those moments with me and God. And I long for those. I want those more. Because sometimes the avalanche feels like I don't know what the next step to take, and I don't know where to go next. But all of a sudden I stop and think for a little bit. I'm like, you know what, God, is this person in my life? This person in my life? And He brought me this person, and He put me in a country where I can stop and I can pray to Him freely and lift my voice and my heart to Him any time that I choose. And you can't help but stop and count the blessings. I'm thankful for a wife that puts up with me, because I'm not the easiest to put up with at times. I'm thankful for kids that put up with me, because I'm not the easiest dad to get along with at times. I'm thankful for a dog that I can call Satan to wake me up at 4 in the morning. You see what happened there? I turned Satan into a positive. Because now I have this time with just me and God alone. And it reminded me of how important that time is. And it made me stop long enough to evaluate and say, John, you know what? All your business, all the avalanche, all the schedules, all the struggles, all the pain, all the what ifs, the what next, the things that I can't even answer, why don't I stop just long enough, just enough time to say, this is where you are right now. And right here's where God is. It is a great story that He tells. The greatest story of all time. And we get to be a part of it. But we first have to hold on to Him. And we second have got to take that time to evaluate where we are. Psalm 32 verse 8 says it like this. I will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. I will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. God will give you that direction. When you spend that time in His Word, He will instruct you and teach you in the way that you should go. There's an election that's coming up, in case you haven't heard about it. It's coming up here in about 40-some days. And I have never, ever, ever preached, ever, on any type of political anything. And yet, guess what? The first week of November, I am preaching on that election. I'm just telling you now so that you're aware. So if you guys want to know the direction or where you want to go, all those other kind of things, I will give you the answer on that day. And I've never done it. I wanted to send a message to Glenn yesterday because he is so very, 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 very passionate about this election. To let him know that, hey, we're going to talk about it. And we're going to have a discussion about it. And it's going to be on that day. You know why it's going to be on that day? Because 2 days later, you're going to be voting in what may be the most important election in the history of our country. That's all I'm going to tell you for now. But we'll share more then. And I've never, ever, ever, ever taken the pulpit for anything political. But it needs to be done. Took me some time, though, to go through that, to realize just how important it is and how important it is as this role to be standing up here to sometimes share what God's Word says, not what John thinks. But it's so important for us to have that discussion. Dan and I on Thursday night went to hear David Jeremiah, and he spoke about this very subject. And he shared just from that about standing up. But when he stood up, it wasn't just standing up for the political side. It was standing up for where we are as a believer. And so he shared the political side for a little bit, but he shared just how important it is. But then he came out and preached. We got to listen to Mercy Me and Charles Billingsley, and it was just one great night for Deanna and I just to kind of fill back up. Because you know what? There are times when the tank gets empty for all of us. And usually that's when we get hit by the avalanche. If whatever was left in there, boom, it gets knocked out. Pete Wilson is a pastor that just stepped away. 14 years. He started a church, ran it up to 7,000, and then all of a sudden, he's got nothing left in him. So here he is in his mid-40s, and he's completely exhausted. And he's tired. And he's done. 1,500 pastors are leaving the pulpit every single month. And yet I have friends that come up to me and go, hey man, I'm thinking about going into full-time ministry. What do you think? And I'm like, what is wrong with you? No, it's not what I share with them. Is this what God's purpose is in your life? Are you ready to hang on to Him at all times? Are you ready to evaluate where He's taking you? Are you ready to give up the freedoms that you have? Are you ready to take your schedule? Are you ready for those things? Because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And especially as a believer, it's coming. That's part of the reason we're under such attack right now. We're believers. We love Jesus. We're not afraid to tell people we love Jesus. When you love Jesus, you are going to be attacked. You're going to be attacked by selfish people. You're going to be attacked by people that want their way. You're going to be attacked by people that don't really care at the end of the day about you. They care about their way. What they're really saying is they don't care enough about this word. And so when you stand on that word and you rest in that word, you're going to take shots. Part of life. Do you have the people around you so you can deal with that? Do you have the people that are ready to help you step up through those? Do you have the people around you that love you enough to say, hey, and are you ready to hang on to God through those and to evaluate even when you may have done nothing wrong? Because what God says in this verse is, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye. In other words, God's already looking to where you're going to go. He already knows the path. Lean not unto your understanding, because He knows the direction that you should take if you will follow it. He's already done it. He's teaching you. He's preparing you. He's readying you. Are you following His path? Or are you so stuck in your past that you can't see? Or are you so stuck under the avalanche that you can't get out? God promises He will instruct you. And God promises that He will give you that direction. Another psalm we're going to turn to. If you could turn to Psalm 105, as we head to the back. There's 150 psalms. If you read 5 psalms a day, you could read that along with the proverb. I know that seems like a lot, but it isn't nearly as much as you think it would be. But so many times, whenever we get stuck, Psalm 105, so many times whenever we get stuck, it's because we rest in the negative. And the negative beats us up. A while back I had a discussion, and I shared this with some of you, is that we focus on the 1 to 2%. I had talked with a friend of mine on the phone. He was like, man, I need to have a phone call. We got on a talk, and I was like, hey man, how you doing? He goes, 50-50. I said, 50-50, so half good, half bad? And he was like, yeah. I said, well, tell me what's bad. He's like, just my schedule, just the timing. I'm like, okay. He was just feeling beat up. I'm like, all right. I go, tell me what's good. How are you and your wife? Oh, we're doing really well. Spending some time together. I said, oh, good. How are you and your kids? Oh man, things are going really good there. How's the job? Job's good. How's everything at home? Home's good. Like, so all those things only equal 50% of your life? Well, more like 98 or 99%. Where he got stuck was in his thoughts. And he got stuck in the negativity. And for so many of us, that's what beats us up and holds us back. That 1 to 2%, we focus on that negative. And when we focus on that negative, we become the victim. And we can't climb out of the rubble on our own. We need to have those around us, because here's the thing you may have forgotten. If you're a believer, you have already won. Wouldn't it be great if every game that you went into, if you already knew that you had won, how would you approach it? If you're going to go out to pitch, you're going to go out to throw, wouldn't it be great to know that you're won? If you're going to play volleyball and you went, oh, we've already won, how would you approach it? Be a little bit different, wasn't it? You're going to call heads or tails, it doesn't matter. The other team's like, well, what are you talking about, heads or tails? Yeah, whatever you want to do. Why? We've already won. So, it's all good. It's all fine. Just flip the coin. Wouldn't it play a little bit different? Would you play a little bit differently? Absolutely. Right? No, you wouldn't. Because how is it you live your life every day? You've already won. Do you walk around saying, I've already won? And other people need to see me like I've already won. And come up and say, what is different about you? You're under an avalanche. You've had every struggle. What is going on? Because at the end of the day, I know I've already won. I've had injuries. I've had sicknesses. I've had struggles. I've had poor financial decisions. I've made mistake after mistake. But I'm going to walk in such a way that I know that I've already won, because I'm going to get rid of the negativity that surrounds me and wears me down and beats me up. I'm no longer going to live Psalm 88. I'm going to live the Psalms that are going to lift me up. Psalm 105, verses 4 and 5 says this: seek the Lord and His strength. Seek His face forevermore. So when you're going through those struggles, and when you're feeling beat up, and when you're feeling knocked down, how do we get through this? How do we get past this? How do we get by all these struggles that are going on? How do we get by the wasted time, the years that went by, the things we didn't do right with our kids, the things we're not doing right with our grandkids, the things, whatever it is that just wears you out from day to day? The thoughts in your mind. The thoughts that you know that aren't productive. And yet God's sitting there going, listen, if you'll hang on to me, if you evaluate this, I'm going to show you something. I am here. And I've got you. Start acting like it. Start acting like you are the victor, because when you rest in all that negativity, you become the victim whether you realize it or not. You weigh yourself down with your thoughts. You weigh yourself down with your situation. And when you do so, you can't see God in it. And you get to the point where you have nothing left. Seek the Lord and His strength. So daily we get an opportunity to work or to walk, not with our strength, but with God's strength. Is He strong enough? Sign up to take Molly tonight, and at 4 a.m. go outside with her and just take in you and everything around you, because it's deathly quiet and it's awesome. And you're going to feel this big. And then when you recognize God for who He is, you just can't help but get filled up. Seek Him in His strength. It says, remember His marvelous works which He has done. Remember His marvelous works which He has done. His wonders and the judgments of His mouth. So in other words, these marvelous works, these great big works, these fantastic works that He has done. The job that He has placed you in. The school that you are in now. This place of freedom in which we can worship at any given time. These marvelous, unbelievable works that He has done. Isn't it amazing? But when do you stop enough to say, hey, brother, I know there's struggles, but I see a marvelous work in you. I see a marvelous work in you. And I know there's a loss, but I've seen a marvelous work in you. And I know there's a battle you're fighting every day, but I know that there's a marvelous work in you. I'm going to share with you something. This is the only woman I've ever kissed outside of my life while married. And I'll tell Deanna today, because it's on tape. I went to see her one day in the hospital, and I'm there to visit her. And she stopped long enough to reach up, and I went to pray with her. Instead of praying with me, she just leaned up, she just grabbed me and kissed me. I thought, that is so sweet, and I have to tell my wife as soon as I get home. But God has done a wonderful work in her. And you know what? It passes on to me. And I feel lifted up by it. And I feel stronger. Because when believers come together, we recognize God in those moments, I can't help but feel stronger. Do you feel that strength? Because we should. We can take all the despair. We can take the avalanche. We can take whatever it is that's weighing us down and say, enough. Because I'm going to rest in God's strength. I'm going to trust in His strength. And I'm going to believe that the people that He brought to me in this life are going to help lift me up the same way through His strength. I'm going to hang on to God. I'm going to look at where I am with things. And at the end of the day, I am going to rest in His strength and in His instruction. Because God has done a marvelous work in you and in me. And I'm going to claim it, and I'm going to live it every single day. Because I don't know when the noise is coming. I don't know when that avalanche is going to release. I don't know when I'm going to be amongst the rubble. But I know this. When that happens, I'm going to hang on to God. I'm going to see where I'm at in the situation. And I'm going to rest and I'm going to live in His strength. Would you stand, please, so we can close in a word of prayer?